Hello, I am Fantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the GungHo Collab rare egg machine that has gone live in North America. So, the GungHo Collab is a regularly reoccurring event because it is owned by GungHo, which in turn means we can expect this to return multiple times in the future. That also means the cards here can be buffed and improved over time, which does give a certain degree of kind of safety if you acquire the higher rarity cards. There's the chance it might get buffed. But unfortunately, this time around, it's one of the weakest iterations because of the timing. So, as a general statement, we are about 2 months or so behind the JP server. If XYZ event comes out in January, we usually get it in March. Unfortunately, for whatever reason there may be, the GungHo collab came about 4 months later, so a 2-month delay. And that in turn means some of these cards kind of feel a bit more dated or almost dead on arrival because they're older already before being released. And to make matters worse, or better I guess in some ways, we had the Monster Hunter event as a simultaneous release. So we got Monster Hunter 2 months earlier, which means we get these stronger, kind of more power-crept cards at an earlier time. So it's going to basically we got Monster Hunter cards 4 months ahead, relatively speaking, to GungHo. GungHo should have come 2 months before, Monster Hunter 2 months later. So the power creep difference between the two events are just almost night and day, which in turn makes it much harder to justify rolling a GungHo collab because the bottom rarity is lackluster, and a lot of the top rarity cards have middling value. They're oftentimes replaceable cards that have better alternatives elsewhere. So while all of this does sound depressing and problematic, there is still the potential to acquire one of the 18-turn leader swap abilities. And leader swapping has tremendous value for late game players who are playing through World of Carnage 2 or trying to abuse rank experience. But if neither of those options are applicable to yourself, these cards will be just average, not stellar super cards. And at the same time, if you have one of them, that's almost enough value because none of them actually provide awakenings because they are not inherits. So, in terms of pros, the Monster Exchange uses 6-star trade fodder. So if you are trying to acquire one of the cards through Monster Exchange, they're a little cheaper. We've been giving so many 6-star Godfest exclusives lately that it makes it just much more justifiable to Monster Exchange if the card has value. And at the same time, like I mentioned, the opportunity to acquire an 18-turn leader swapping value active is valuable. Unfortunately, the bottom rarity is lacking. 41.8% of the cards will be that, and this is not a happy place to be. None of these cards are going to make a difference for a well-developed monster box, or even a modestly developed monster box. 40% of the rolls will be sad, and even of the 6 stars, not some of them just have middling value. They definitely can be replaceable. And the rankings, they kind of can be misleading. At the very top, the leader swap is unbelievably valuable if you don't have any and certain requirements are met. If you don't have those requirements met, they're just kind of average cards. So the event is still reasonably bottom heavy, bottom rarity heavy and bottom lower quality heavy. So not very good odds if you are rolling. It is an older event, so the older cards tend to be the bottom rarity tends to not get buffed. They tend to get neglected, so they just get sad over time. And the timing was unfortunate. 2 months late here, Monster Hunter 2 months earlier. Power creep difference is quite significant. So that being said, let's take a look at each of the cards individually. So Sari is one of the new 7-star cards available, and she could be a potential solution for your mono fire or maybe mono wood teams as a cleric. And when I say the word cleric, I mean someone who can clear bind, awoken binds, unable to match over effects, that type of thing. So Sari has the ability to clear 6 turns of awoken binds and 6 turns of unable to match over effects. So it's not a bad aspect over there. You don't clear regular binds, and of course 6 turns may not be sufficient for certain aspects, but at the same time it's covering the more quote-unquote important stuff, because regular binds don't necessarily have as much value if everything is already bind immune. Again, there are edge cases. So the active skill is reasonable, plus it makes 6 fire and 6 wood orbs, so orb generation is always helpful. Their awakenings give you super poison resist, which is a meaningful awakening. They have an enhanced fire combo and potentially another enhanced fire combo, but they also come with an enhanced wood combo. And that is awkward because you're not going to need both colors. Both colors are not going to be activating on a regular basis, so one of those awakenings kind of becomes meaningless, so to speak. And we don't like the word meaningless when it comes to awakenings because there's probably a card out there who has no meaningless or they have only meaningful awakenings. And Sari, unfortunately, has quite a bit of overlap with other options. The biggest notable overlap is with Christmas Gremory. And Christmas Gremory provides more skill boosts, follow-up attack, which is valuable for Sena teams. She has more health and significantly higher recovery. Yes, Sari could do more personal damage, but Gremory and Sari are still not going to be doing much damage in the grand scheme of things, so their awakenings are kind of wasteful in that sense. So I feel like that is definitely a bit of a problematic aspect. You're not as strong as another card already available, and if you're trying to be a Wood Cleric, Alna in the future will be incredibly strong. Fasca is still a great solution. I just don't think Sari is necessarily going to outpace other options because she doesn't come with that many skill boosts. Her offensive awakenings are kind of wasted because it won't be doing enough. It might as well have been just really something else. Mixing colors. She's just got a couple of things that are holding her back from being truly amazing. It's not to say that she's a bad card, it's just that there are other available options. But in that same breath, if you don't have Christmas Grimmer, you don't have any good solution for clearing these issues for your mono fire or maybe mono wood teams, she may be a possible candidate for monster exchanging, but at the same time, I feel like the prospect of her is not that great. She might be just a temporary band-aid for a long-term problem, and you might get something stronger in the future anyways. For her Evo form, she does have more skill boosts, and she does still have the same problematic aspect of mixing colors, and her active skill gives you 2 turns of haste, so more effective skill boost, but it doesn't actually counter mechanics, so I would just stick with her base form because her base form provides an actually useful active skill and a super resist alongside of it. For her weapon, it provides unique bulk. You get 2 team health and 2 team RCV, and that same active skill from her base form. And as a weapon, this is not a good active skill. For cards that you use as clerics, they can have shorter cooldowns with, like, say, 5 turns of clearing. That is fine because you usually inherit something stronger over top to deal with the bigger binds and awoken binds or unable to match up effects that can arise. And this weapon assist will not be fulfilling that requirement. You don't even clear regular binds either. So, like, the Ogre Floor, this is obviously inefficient. Like, it doesn't clear the binds. The Ogre Floor is a problem in World of Carnage 2. It's going to be hard to work this weapon assist into a team, I feel, because the active skill won't be strong enough. If this active skill was a full clear, I would give no hesitations about recommending this weapon assist because the unique bulk can be meaningful. You can heal more, you can tank more hits. Useful stuff, but an unuseful active skill for a weapon assist. Next is Lucy and Valkyrie, and Lucy and Valkyrie have perhaps the ugliest artwork of any card in the game. It doesn't make sense. You want to be a top rarity card, you want to make them appealing, but no, they're ugly. Looks aside, they have the potential to be strong or useful, but they're missing several key notable aspects. So they do have the potential for quadruple 7 combo, which has a reasonable attack set, so they could have meaningful personal damage. But that means you're giving up a super skill boost, which means you only have 1 skill boost. So you could have been a transforming card. That's how I think about it. If you have 1 skill boost, you could have been someone that transformed. And are they providing enough value to outpace transforming cards? The answer is no, unfortunately. Because they provide 20% blind, poison, and jam resist. And that is an archaic template for a card. Yes, that was useful back in the day when we had no super resist and a weapon would max out at 60%. It was meaningful back then, but now they're basically 3 dead awakenings. If one of those was a super resist and those other awakenings were literally anything else, she'd be a better card. So you've already got less useful awakenings, you've got less skill boost than is truly ideal. Your active skill is missing 1 key component. Her active skill gives you a full health heal, remove all binds, reduce all inability to match orb effects, but you don't clear awoken binds. So you can't fulfill this cleric role, and awoken binds are everywhere. You need to have awoken bind clearing. So if you're running Lucy as a sub, you have to run someone else that deals with awoken binds. It's just too many problematic aspects. If she had a bit more skill boost, if she had a super resist instead of those stupid 20%, if she had awoken bind clear, she could have been a significantly stronger card. But that is sadly not the case. On the other hand, her weapon assist is pretty strong as well, but at the same time, I do feel like it is outpaced by at least one other option. The weapon assist gives you a skill boost, 20% blind and poison. It's fine to have as a weapon. It's okay. It's just extra things sprinkled in. And 2 Dark Orb enhances. So mono dark teams can definitely benefit from this. And the active skill gives you a full health heal. And this heal occurs before the binds are removed. This is important for World of Carnage 2 and the Ogre floor because I had my friend test it. He went in, got bound, cleared the binds, then received the full heal and had enough effective health to tank the Ogre's 600,000 damage hit. It is a definite solution for the Ogre floor in World of Carnage 2, and it's an actual cleric active skill. It fully removes all bind and woken binds and unable to match or effects. Valuable active skill to have, and it also gives a skill boost, which is unique. But the problem is, I feel that Christmas Tamadra is just the superior option, because Christmas Tamadra gives you meaningful killers in World of Carnage 2. It gives you full bind immunity, so those bind vulnerable cards are now protected. It gives you a delay, so you're guaranteed to overcome the Ogre floor or any other floor because you can delay them for 2 turns and just have a happy time doing whatever you need to do to survive. It brings much more value as a whole. So like, if you have Christmas Tamadra, there is no point in really utilizing this weapon assist by comparison. But at the same time, not everyone has a Christmas Tamadra. So if you don't have Christmas Tamadra and you feel like this type of active skill through a weapon will be meaningful to your monster box, it may be worth considering IAPing for an orb skin. But the decision of whether to IAP comes down to personal spending habits, etc., etc., is not something I'm going to touch on this video. So point of the matter is, this is a strong weapon assist, but it is outclassed by Christmas Tamadra. So again, if you have Christmas Tamadra, I would use it over this in almost every situation that I can truly fathom. It also comes with an ugly orb skin. Ugly card, ugly orb skin, ugly overall. GungHo Minerva is the most disastrous 7-star card. She provides no meaningful value, I feel, in this base form. Like, she's got average damage output. Whoop-de-doo, average damage output. She's got 2 skill boosts, nothing important there. She's got guard break, lots of things have guard break. Her active skill is a 3-turn cooldown that does provide an attack buff based on the number of time extends in the team. But the point of the matter is, it's just not going to be enough. It's just really not going to, it's just not something you really can incorporate onto a team. She doesn't provide enough zesty stuff overall. And Super Poisonous is cool, but there are stronger options. Her Dark form has 1 more skill boost, Super Poisonous, but no synergistic awakenings, no personal damage, nothing. Like, light teams don't really use Rose. Like, it's just hard to truly utilize them, I feel, overall. For their other weapon assists, or their 1 weapon assist, it gives a God Killer. So God Killer has situational value, but you have to be mindful of the fact that it has a low base cooldown, which could accidentally overcharge, which could be problematic if you needed the base active skill for a given card. Now we come to Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is the best card in this event, I'd say, overall, because what she brings for mono fire teams. And for mono fire teams, she has double 10 combo and 4 enhanced Fire Orb Awakening. So large personal damage, huge personal damage, great passive damage, and a respectively high attack stat. So she can deal meaningful amounts of damage when 10 combos are hit. So this obviously has merits on Sena teams because Sena gives you the bonus combos, which is what Lakshmi wants, and Sena already has enough void penetration damage already. Lakshmi is useless against void spawns. Sena, usually with a grandest sub, will be more than enough VDP damage for any given dungeon. So Lakshmi's weaknesses are all covered on Sena teams. She can get 3 skill boosts, so it's not terrible, but her active skill is incredibly valuable. For 7 turns, you have 30% damage reduction, and then wood to fire. So an orb changer at the very worst, but it's damage reduction that lasts for an incredibly long time, and you can almost self-system it with a 9-turn cooldown, which is almost enough. So basically, with 30% damage reduction, you're able to tank large hits that could have been lethal otherwise. And in World of Carnage 2, there were tons of large lethal hits that you can't avoid. So having an active skill that you need to bring, because this active skill potentially is enough to let you survive or tank Gil's Executes, it definitely should be enough to help you tank Ogres and the Gem floor. Like, the point of the matter is, it's a valuable active skill, huge personal damage, useful awakenings as well. It's just winning with this card if you use Sena teams. And her typing is good because Sun Quan doesn't get extra damage reduction against her. So for myself, when I got GungHo Lakshmi, I was able to smash through Sun Quan despite all his damage reduction in World of Carnage 2 because Lakshmi hits so hard. And the main drawback, I'd say, is that she's an orb skin card, which means you can't monster exchange for her, but you can directly purchase with IAP. So again, if you have a Sena team and you feel like you are hitting a wall, Lakshmi could be a great solution because she does give you a viable alternative to using Shiva. Her Dark form is just inferior by comparison. Her base form just does so much more. Dark form has too many L's, not a useful active skill by comparison. No. Her weapon assist, again, like it has unique awakenings in the sense that I don't think anyone else has this exact setup, but you're going to want to use the base form. I would not really foresee this being superior to the base form in really any current situation. For Loki, in his base form, he has massive amounts of damage reduction, but no health at all, and you have to match 2 water combos to trigger damage reduction. So without 2 water combos, you die. So that's a problem. So he's wildly inconsistent for that reason. Yes, you can use active skills to generate orbs on a regular basis, but I don't feel like it's going to surpass other options like, say, Crab or like Monkey, who are just stronger 2 water combo solutions that just have more synergistic abilities overall. So kind of an awkward card, I feel. It just doesn't quite fulfill what you want as a leader. As a sub, it has some potential, but the lower skill boost count may be difficult because you may want to pursue more damage. It all depends. For their dark form, I feel like this is going to be their strongest form because they have huge personal damage. They have 4 attack while below 50% and 7 combo. They can inherit another attack while below 50% with the God Killer as well. So they have massive amounts of personal damage and a strong attack stat. So you might think, wow, this is great. But the problem is, it's hard to really work them into a team, I feel. With 1 skill boost, because you really want to take the 7 combo to really push the damage over the top, you have 1 skill boost. It can be difficult to incorporate onto a given team. And the active skill is highly situational as well. It's a 3-turn cooldown that gives you 2 turns of 100% defense break. And 100% defense break is great for things like Training Arena 2 or the Dragon Seed in World of Carnage 2. You have to make the decision of whether or not you're playing these dungeons because this active skill won't have value otherwise. It'd just be a low base cooldown to inherit over top. As a leader, they have great bulk, 75% damage reduction and 2.25 times health with dual leaders, bonus combos, and you have massive recovery. So you basically can always heal back up to full health, and with Loki's massive personal damage, you can smash incredibly hard. But the thing is, it's only 196 times attack, so only Loki will be dealing meaningful damage. And remember, this is a rainbow-based team. So rainbow-based teams already have issues with color dilution, so you're going to have no one else hitting that hard, and you may struggle still for damage even with Loki hitting like a truck. So I have used him to clear World of Carnage 1. I did so in December last time GungHo Collab came around, so you definitely can make upgrades to that given team. But again, I feel like his potential has kind of been reached, so to speak. His weapon assist gives you 2 evolution material killers and a physical killer. So evolution material killers are great for killing that Dragon Seed. But the problem is, if you are a water-based team, it doesn't matter how much damage you deal because of the way the Dragon Seed being wood means you do half damage and your damage cap gets reduced down below. Your damage you deal is half of damage cap. And then they have 2 billion defense, so you never actually overcome their defense. So this weapon assist won't help water teams, which are the ones who needed it the most. And the physical killer is valuable. There are so many physical spawns in World of Carnage 2 that physical killer is actually relevant. So for like non-water teams, this could be a reasonably strong solution because you have the way to kill the Dragon Seed with relative ease. You gain bonus damage against highly relevant spawns. But at the same time, you have to think that, well, you could use Sara's weapon. You might have ways to overcome the Dragon Seed anyways. And Sara's weapon gives physical killer and attacker killer if you have that available. So I think it's a reasonable weapon, but still pretty situational how we can use it. Reginleif, in her base form, they are still a strong mono dark cleric. They have 5 skill boosts, they have reasonable personal damage, and they have a useful active skill that clears 5 turns of Bind and Awoken Minds with 3 turns of Dark Skyfalls. The problem is, they're inferior to Nergigante if you want to get Skyfall looping, and Aragi and Gore Magala are, I'd say, stronger mono dark cleric options. But at the same time, Aragi, not everyone has him. He's a top rarity card that not many people necessarily have, and Gore Magala has less skill boost. So Gore Magala, I think, is a better performing card once you don't need skill boost, but Reginleif has better value if you need to transform sooner or leader swap earlier. But the point of the matter is there are other options available that just makes her weaker by comparison. For myself, I have Aragi, and I will never look back. I will never need to use Reginleif because he is superior to her in every single way, basically. Her dark form has a unique leader skill in the sense that if you're an attacker or devil type card, you deal your maximum damage output when you match 4 or more connected orbs. It's any 4 or more connected orbs, so stupendously high amounts of damage output. You can farm content with relative ease, but again, it is situational. Do you need this card? Do you have other options available? That sort of idea. And also their base form has more universal usage, assuming you don't have the other cleric options available. For her weapon assist, it gives you that Dragon Killer, which I guess is cool and a useful active skill, but it doesn't fully clear Bind and Awoken Binds. And as mentioned in previous cards, weapon assists need to fully clear Bind, Awoken Binds, and unable to match orb effects. Otherwise, you can't rely on them. And weapon assists are what you rely on to clear these mechanics. Lilia, in her base form, tries to do a bit of stuff, but she doesn't truly succeed because she's not a better option compared to other cards available. Her Wood Rose have no value at this point in time. Her personal damage is non-existent unless you match a VDP, which is not going to happen on a regular basis. And her active skill does remove unable to match orb effects and Bind and Awoken Bind clear. So this is a useful active skill, but the body that comes with it is not that great. Low skill boost, no personal damage really, or low personal damage. Wood Rose that go to waste. It's just something you don't necessarily want to bring. I feel like Oichi would be stronger because it gives a board changer and super poison resist at least. Fasca is obviously superior. They have almost the same number of skill boosts because 2 skill boosts is quite low. So as a whole, I feel like base Lilia could be a possible cleric solution, but she's not going to be a better option compared to other things if you have a deeper wood box. But at the same time, I would still keep her in her base form because her dark form doesn't really have enough value. Her dark form has reasonable personal damage, 4 skill boosts, but doesn't actually solve any mechanics. She changes water and hazards to wood and locks wood orbs, so that doesn't solve mechanics. None of her awakenings are resist, so she doesn't provide value there. So she's just kind of like a 4 skill boost card with a low base cooldown with reasonable, not amazing, reasonable personal damage. Relatively generic card, and I feel like that you'd be better off with her base form because at least it gives you a cleric-based role. For her weapon assist, it falls into the same problem of not fully clearing Bind and Awoken Binds, which is not a good thing for a weapon assist. And the Awakenings right now don't have much synergy with other teams, really. Like, Cloud Resist is definitely kind of a saturated weapon assist because Fagan Rai is just so good. You may have picked up Amatsu as well. Like, the Cloud Resist, there are great weapons already available, so it's hard to compete against those. So this weapon, with a bad active skill for a weapon, less ideal awakenings will not make the cut, I feel. Omega in his base form has massive amounts of personal damage against God and Devil type spawns, especially when you consider the fact that he has large attack stat. He also has a 1-turn base cooldown, which means you can inherit something over top of it with relative ease, and his leader skill is reasonably strong as long as you use an active skill. The problem is, he is good, but he's not the best in any one metric. He is like a strong damage solution, but there are much harder hitting cards available. His 1-turn cooldown is nice to inherit over top of, but it's an exceptionally underwhelming effect if you use the base skill itself. And with only 2 skill boosts, you're almost something that could transform, and transforming cards tend to have much more overtuned kits as a whole. So it's not to say that he's a bad card, it's just that he doesn't really excel in any one particular metric, and his Dark form is still one of the best farming cards in the game because they have huge amounts of personal damage, a large attack stat, and they have a synergistic leader skill and active skill. So Dark Omega needs to be below 50% health to deal his full attack multiplier for fire type cards. That's an incredibly easy activation requirement. No matching pattern necessary. Just be below half health. And you deal large amounts of damage. His active skill cuts your health by 50%. So yay, you've just achieved your threshold. And it also makes a row of fire and a row of dark. So you could potentially kill 2 floors with a single active skill while resetting your health. It's so self-sufficient, it's just brilliant. It just works so well. And you can layer in rows, you can layer in more attack while below 50%, and you can definitely swipe and smash your way through lots of content, like Training Arena 2, for instance, with relative ease. And the success of this leader will definitely hinge upon what other orb generating cards you have at your disposal, because the key is being able to generate orbs on a regular basis to keep smashing your way through a given dungeon. For his weapon assist, it has potentially a 6 or a 1-turn cooldown for that terribly underwhelming effect. That in itself is justification enough to not pursue this weapon because you do not want it to overcharge, and the awakenings provided are just okay. Tape resist I still feel is kind of situational, but it's just not worth the risk of potentially overcharging and also not using his dark form. For Noir, and this is going to apply to every other leader swap card in this event, and I'm only going to talk about each one of them, and the same logic applies to all three. But they are incredibly valuable as a leader swap if you meet the certain requirements. And the certain requirements are you're playing through World of Carnage 2 and you want to utilize 7x6 swapping strategies. Because right now, 7x6 is heavily punished in AA4, quite heavily punished in World of Carnage 1, but it is hardly punished in World of Carnage 2. And with a bigger board, everything becomes easier. So you have the ability to swap, like enter the dungeon with 7x6. Use someone like Alatu or Fasca who have 7x6 and you probably want to bring as a sub anyways. And then you inherit this on top of a non-transforming card, and then you swap into position. When you swap in, you will still retain the bigger board. So now you're playing with your leader on a bigger board with your same activation requirements, which have become easier. So your consistency goes up significantly in World of Carnage 2. The other usage for leader swapping is to abuse rank experience. Basically, that is, you enter the dungeon with someone like Saline who boosts rank experience, you swap into something that actually can kill things, and then you finish the dungeon. When you finish the dungeon, you will still get the bonus rank experience that you were entitled to for entering the dungeon with Saline, but swapping midway through does not invalidate it for every floor. So you can rank up faster. But ranking up in pad is, in all honesty, badly designed. It punishes you for ranking up to high ranks because it becomes incredibly difficult to chain rank ups. And now I know that I'm well aware that stamina is much more accessible compared to beforehand, but it's still nice not wasting stamina because a lower rank account, anything basically below mid 900s, I'd say is kind of quote unquote lower, or at least below 900, because it's quite easy to rank up nowadays. And if you use rank experience and abuse it too much, you may just end up over-ranking multiple times and wasting all that stamina, and then you eventually get to the point when you're in your high 900s where it becomes incredibly difficult to rank up. So you wasted all those rank ups when you're low rank, and now you can't rank up at higher ranks, and then you have a problematic situation. For myself, I've never abused rank experience swapping strategies. I never have. I just rely on playing World of Carnage 1 to rank up if I need to, because that provides lucrative rewards, and it's not like rushing my progress, because then it gets harder to rank up. And I'm getting close to rank 1000 with this approach. I definitely could do it if I just play more World of Carnage 1 or World of Carnage 2 if I can get more consistent at it. But the point of the matter is, there's no need to rush it. So if you are not falling into the category of leader swapping for 7x6 for World of Carnage 2 or abusing rank experience because you're incredibly high rank, these leader swap cards will not have value because you won't have a truly valuable usage for them. And the reason why these cards are desirable is because they have an 18 turn cooldown, and that's tied for the fastest with the Bonta, which is something almost no one has because it's an old collab card. So with an 18 turn cooldown, you can swap in more easily. You get 15% increased Skyfall for their primary color for 15 turns. So obviously if you have the right color, it's beneficial, but you might be overwriting it anyways. If you transform with someone like, say, Juron, you get those wood Skyfalls anyways, so you could overwrite your Skyfalls you get from swapping. Point of the matter is, get one of these leader swap cards if you fulfill one of those two requirements. Otherwise, they don't have much value. And all the things I said about that apply to Ralg, they apply to Noir, they apply to Orange without the N, or Orage. And Orage, I'd say, has one slightly unique usage, is that they have an unconditional 18 times attack per leader when they are a leader. So if you want to use Orage as your leader that swaps into position, usually not the case, but let's say you're playing through like kind of a mid-ish difficulty dungeon, you can swap into position and then you have an unconditional 18 times attack with any match. Makes your life a little easier then as well. Next is Raizer, and Raizer in his dark form is his best iteration because in his dark form he has 2 enhanced wood combos, so passive damage, meaningful personal damage against devil and machines, which are the most commonly found spawns in Altarena 4 and World of Carnage 1, so that's useful there. He also has an active skill that you have to bring for these dungeons. His active skill gives you 2 turns of damage absorb void and 2 turns of Color Absorb Void, which you need to have in both of those dungeons. So Raizer should definitely be included on your mono wood teams if you're playing through those content, because he has big personal damage and he has an active skill that counters it. But the big drawback is his longer cooldown. 17 turn cooldown is quite long, and right now GungHo tends to favor dungeons that have multiple damage or color absorb spawns spaced out. So you can't utilize them on, say, floor 10 and have them carry over to floor 11 and have another spawn that has those mechanics on the next floor. That just doesn't happen nowadays. It's all spaced out. And for wood teams in Shura 1, you can potentially encounter Denbola for color absorb. You always encounter Sopdet for damage. You might encounter Cosmic Crusader for damage. And then 2 out of the 5 Minoas could have color/damage absorb, which is relevant for you. So there are 4 instances of World of Carnage 1 where you need to use Raizer's active. You're not going to be able to stall continuously between all those points. So what's going to have to happen is you have to supplement his active skill with someone else who provides counters to these mechanics. And that is a little frustrating because Raizer could have been the one-stop solution for all these if he only did 1 turn of absorb counter and his cooldown was drastically cut down. He could have been so much stronger of a card, but because it's a longer cooldown and the way dungeons are set up, it's a little harder to work around, that you have to probably rely on someone else to solve these problems, especially for World of Carnage 1 playing. With his weapon assist, I feel like it's not a strong enough solution to compete with his dark form. 2 team health is cool, but we have lots of ways to get team health. We could use the farmable Amazukumi, who has 3. You could use Fagan Rai, who has 2, which I think almost everyone has now at this point in time if you exchange for the right thing when during that metal event. And like the attacker healer has situational usage. It does have value in World of Carnage 2, but again, the active skill that's tied to this card is not particularly helpful, so you're just kind of like layering in bulk. You're giving yourself more damage for a key card potentially, but you're giving up his dark form. GungHo Reeche has 3 skill charges, which means their 25 turn cooldown can be potentially ready in 9 turns if you get lucky with 5 colors every single time. And with this active skill, you have 2 turns of damage and color absorb void. So kind of like Dark Raizer, but it has the potential to at least be charged up faster. The problem with this is the body tied to Reeche, or the body tied to this active skill, is not particularly meaningful because he has lackluster personal damage. Double 7 combo is nothing nowadays. So those are basically dead awakenings. And for this type of active skill, he's grossly outclassed by New Year's Reach and Zinogre, and really Polone to a certain extent as well when I think about it, because Polone is reasonably accessible, available on an 8-turn cooldown post-transform, and he gets 1 turn of color damage absorb void. So, like, he has many alternatives, and even potentially, like, regular Reach, regular Rare Machine Reach is similar, and we don't really want to utilize them. So, I feel like if you have other options available, you may want to look at their weapon, which does have other options too, because their weapon assist was much stronger before the Chinese Celestials were released, because it provides a skill boost and a full bind immunity. And that's the exact same loadout of the Chinese Celestials, which are quite accessible. So the main advantage Reeche's hat has over them is the longer base cooldown, which makes it harder to accidentally overcharge. And then in the odd situation where it does charge up, you have a useful active skill that you probably would need to have. But at the same time, your Chinese Celestials can basically cover this role basically just as well. But at the same time, Quillen Dragon Gems may be out of reach for some players, and this might be a better, more budget alternative solution. I like my puns. They are important. Next is Fonce, and I think Fonce is actually quite a strong card. In their Evo form, they have quad physical killer, and they have potentially double 7 combo if you really wanted to. So they can smash through physical type spawns. But the problem is, there are not many physical type spawns outside of World of Carnage 2, which I don't think he could really be successfully brought into. You have 4 skill boosts, and you do have Bind and Awoken Bind clear skill, but you don't change Unable to Match Orb effects, you don't give time buff. It's just not quite enough, I feel, to justify. And at the same time, his Chibi form, I feel, fulfills a much better niche overall. Because in their Chibi form, they have triple VDP and potentially double Devil Killer, so they can do massive amounts of damage to Devils, which is Gills and one of the Shariest spawns, who do need a Void as well. So meaningful damage there. But what I get most excited for is a 2-turn active skill. This active skill gives you It gives you 50% RCV for a single turn. So you nerf your own RCV, but you overwrite any RCV debuff, which is a big deal. And it's a 2-turn cooldown, so it's easy to have access to, easy to inherit over, and it also makes 4 Dark Orbs if you're truly desperate. So there's no real downside to this active skill, and you can definitely inherit a much more higher impact active skill on top if you needed something. Like, say for instance you inherited Dark Cotton on top, you now have another RCV buff instead of a self debuff, and an orb generator and damage reduction. Could be something you actually want to have on your team. I think it's a great design card for this reason, and at least for myself, the reason why I think it's so valuable is because I was struggling to find a low cooldown card with meaningful awakenings for my mono dark teams that would buff either RCV or movement time, and Fonce definitely solves that. Unfortunately, they cannot be traded for. If they could be traded for, I would be trading for them in a heartbeat because they are 6-star trade fodder overall, but at the same time, that's not the case. But strong utility-based option for your mono dark teams, and it does come with at least 2 skill boosts, which is a little better than nothing at least. Next is Eclair, and maybe there is some dessert involved, but in her Evo form, they have quad attacker killer and double 7 combos. So they can do stupendous amounts of damage to attacker type spawns, but at this point in time, there are not many places to really take advantage of attacker killers, but at the same time, having a tremendous damage solution is meaningful, and it's more valuable compared to her other form because in her chibi form, it's just a VDP solution that could kill gods. There are not really many god type spawns. Light doesn't necessarily need to have a heavy VDP sub either. That's not really contributing that much otherwise. Maybe you can argue that her 3-turn cooldown with the orb generation aspect can be valuable, but I feel like the awakenings themselves are just not strong enough to keep her abreast with other options available. Ciel is another new card, if I'm not mistaken, and she has quad healer killer. So again, healer type spawns. If you have lots of them, it can be meaningful, and they also have damage reduction for a single turn while generating wood orbs. The problem is, Susanoo is really just the king of damage reduction for wood-based teams. Susanoo is just better at it than basically any other card. More skill boosts, more everything really that's meaningful. So that is that. And then again, healer killers are situational, but Training Arena 2 does have quite a few healer spawns, so it might be a possible solution for a given team if you're using wood-based cards. In her Revo form, she has large amounts of VDP damage against machine-type spawns, but I don't feel like she surpasses the wood VDP options available because you need a VDP to truly shine because 2 machine killers is not enough damage output overall. And for VDP damage, you could use Duron, who is farmable, and Duron will do damage all the time, not just when you match a VDP. And I honestly don't think wood teams really struggle in World of Carnage 1 for damage output because with Nadeko somewhere on the team or as just a friend leader, you just dunk out so much damage anyways that you probably will not benefit from her killers and the fact that there are not that many wood spawns. Furthermore, her active skill actually doesn't counter mechanics. You give yourself no Skyfalls for 2 turns, which is hindering your own damage output while making 4 wood orbs. If it was a buff of some kind, this could have been possibly a more passable card. GungHo Erd in her chibi form has an interesting mix of being able to farm content mindlessly and efficiently and possibly tackling arena-style content. And this is because her leader skill has solid bulk. You don't have damage reduction, so gravities can be a problem, but all you need to do is be a fire type card, you match 6 or more connected fire orbs, and you get your full attack multiplier. So being low health doesn't actually affect your multiplier, but it's helpful to be low health, and luckily her active skill does that. On a 1-turn cooldown, you cut your own health, you attack, you give a self-attack debuff for dark, which is irrelevant because you're not going to have dark cards on your team anyways, and then you make 3 fire orbs. So you override attack debuffs, you make 3 fire orbs, you set yourself up for your big personal damage, and it definitely has synergy with other cards like, say, Dark Omega for farming, because I like pairing my Chibi Bird with Dark Omega, and that's where I found I've utilized her the most often, because you can't really bring her into, like, Shura Realm level content. It's just quite difficult without the damage reduction, and it's just not really as spicy compared to other mono fire cards available. You still can definitely clear quite a bit of content. You do have auto follow attack, so it does make life quite easy, but I just don't feel like she surpasses our other options available. So I found myself just using her as a farming based solution, and I tend to pair with Dark Omega because it gives me that sweet active skill and more rows being auto generated. Verdandi in her chibi form has a 2-turn cooldown, gives you a column of hard orbs and no RCV for a single turn. So you can't heal with the orbs you make, which is kind of weirdly counterintuitive, but you could overwrite any RCV debuff. But I feel like the most unique applicable application for this active skill is on your super reincarnated Hino teams, because you need to match 5 or more connected orbs to deal his massive auto follow attack damage. So this column of hard orbs is ready-made, and it has no animation pinged, which means runs should be a little bit faster. But again, I think this is quite situational, but maybe we'll find a usage for her. Who knows? Skuld has way too many skill binders. It's just excessively wasteful awakenings that is not really going to ever pan out, in all honesty. I don't really foresee a situation where your team will have 0 skill binder resist or just only 1 across 5 different cards. It's just not a likely scenario. And in her chibi form, it is a reasonably strong card, but again, it doesn't outpace the truly great mono wood subs that exist right now. And like, if you don't have Durand, which is farmable, so it's kind of arguable you could have Durand. If you don't have Durand, you could utilize them for sure as a void solution. You don't have Albert, you don't have Susano, like those are other void solutions. Chibi Skuld can definitely work because you have a 10 combo, a VDP, and potentially either a 7 combo, a super skill boost, or super poison resist through your super awakening. So some flexibility there, more team RCV, which helps you heal, and a 3-turn active skill, which can make some wood orbs. So these are not bad traits necessarily, it's just that I feel that the other wood cards are stronger. If you are lacking these other options, I think Chibi Skuld definitely can be a meaningful card to use, but at the same time, for myself, I feel like I wouldn't really be able to slot her into a given team that easily, potentially, because I feel like I already have enough when I use like Durand and Susano. They already take up 2 important sub-slots for most endgame content. Urs Laguna in their chibi form has a 3-turn active skill, which creates a column of fire orbs. So with 4 of them, you can make a self-system. So for farming stuff quickly, especially against attacker or healer spawns, you can deal massive amounts of damage, but it's highly situational where you utilize them. But again, if you somehow have multiple cards of them, they can be a system. Grand Starster has become an underwhelming water cleric option due to their poor stat distribution, insignificant personal damage, a jammer blessing which you don't want to have, so lots of wasted awakenings, low skill boost, and an active skill that makes jammer orbs. And like, it's just like, it's a board changer that makes water, hearts, and jammers with bind and awoken, bind clear by 5 turns. So it's a reasonable active skill, but if you have Goldfish Girl, you have Beach Planner, you have Leginia, they're all much better mono water clerics. And like, if you have any of those cards available, I would not be pursuing Grand Starster because they just don't provide enough value and they just feel underwhelming overall. Their chibi form doesn't do anything of value. Like, you make no Skyfalls for 1 turn, 6-turn cooldown for a tri-elemental board of jammers. Whoop-de-doo, no resists, well, tape resist I rarely use. My point is, there's no valuable usage for their chibi form, so if you have no options whatsoever, maybe you could use Grand Starster as a cleric-based option. For Mercury in her base form, she has strong potential to kill dragons, but I feel like she has more value in her chibi form because she can double up and kill either attackers or physical spawns, so more coverage overall. She can use their killers, she can use them as super awakenings, large personal damage, reasonably high attack stat, but at the same time, if you have those quad killer options, she becomes less appealing overall, but at the same time, she's still a reasonably strong killer solution. Shust in his base form is a 300 times button, but 300 times button is nothing special nowadays, and you're better off looking at their chibi form. Now, their chibi form has specific usage, and the specific usage is for mono water farming teams because they have a 4-turn base cooldown, which generates a row of water orbs. So easy swipe, and they have 7 row awakenings. So explosive amounts of passive damage, and with multiple Shust, you can have a Shust system. You can swipe and obliterate whatever spawn is in your path. Obviously, the problem with this is you need to have other orb generators to support this build for your farming setup, and obviously you have an appropriate leader to utilize. Like Machine No, I know is one farmable solution, but the point of the matter is it could be possibly difficult to build a strong solo team for them. So I feel like for players who have incredibly deep monster boxes who like playing in solo mode, this could be a very strong, viable solution for them because it's just explosive amounts of damage. But for the average player, I feel like it will be a bit more difficult to fully capitalize upon them. And also, you need to be mindful of the fact that they don't have Skilled Bind resist and they are vulnerable to binds. Now we come to the 5-star cards. So for the first 5-star card is Psych. And Psych is not that great. You don't accomplish truly anything meaningful outside of the fact that they might be a possible solution for 5-star rarity challenges because they have personal damage, they have an okay leader skill, they have an okay active skill, but that's kind of it. For their weapon assist, they have 2 Team RCs and 2 Poison Resists, which are okay awakenings overall, and that Tri-Elemental Board of Haste. It's nothing exceptional or special. It's not something I would pursue. It's just more so I feel like something that's more budget-oriented if you don't have other options. Selene, in their base form, has the ability to generate 10 Dark Orbs and no RCV. But it's more so that they can generate 10 Dark Orbs on a 7-turn cooldown, which is kind of unique. It could help you for your mono dark teams if you need it. But at the same time, you probably just maybe stick with their weapon, possibly, if you inherited that on top of someone. Who knows? Still a relatively underwhelming card, but hey, making 10 Dark Orbs is kind of unique. Helen has no value whatsoever, I'd say, in either form or chibi form. Like, it's just not a strong enough healing solution. It's not something you want to bring into a difficult dungeon. It's just not going to do enough for you overall, I'd say. GungHo does nothing in their base form. In their chibi form, they have the potential for respectable machine killer damage through 777 combo, double machine killer awakenings. But the problem is, Pixel Napoleon does infinitely more damage. They both have the same 1 skill boost, which is awkward. And GungHo's only saving grace compared to Pixel Napoleon is a lower base cooldown. But I'd rather just run Pixel Napoleon because exceptionally more damage is better than a lower base cooldown, in my opinion, because you can kill everything without second guessing yourself. 10 Fufa does not get a 10 out of 10. In her base form, I can't think of anything useful to say about them, really. And in their chibi form, they have triple balance killer, but basically no personal attack. So maybe if you make a TPA, you could have some balance killer potential, but it's an incredibly situational card overall. For Atlantala, in their base form, again, they have balance killer potential, but they need to hit that 7 combo to truly make them shine. There are quad options available. They're just easier to use options overall that could even take balance killer latents. Their weapon assist is far too short of a cooldown, which makes it easy to overcharge, and the active skill that's resulting from it is underwhelming. Yes, passive damage is cool, but I find that water teams are definitely gravitating more towards enhanced combo awakenings as opposed to Rose. For Orpheus, it's not enough physical killers to be relevant, and they have 2 co-op boost awakenings, which means they can be utilized as a button base. So the ideas of a button base is you inherit an active skill like, say, that 300 times attack from Shust non-chibi form on top of a card with co-op boost. In multiplayer, their attack stat is bolstered significantly, so the button does more damage. The problem is Orpheus's attack stat is terribly low, and if you have light Vag, they have 29, they have more than 1,000, they have over 1,000 more attack by comparison. So you're dealing infinitely more button damage. They have more skill boosts, they have 8 latent slots, so they can take an extra attack, a big attack plus latent. They will just be a better performing card. So Orpheus really has no value, and at the same time, if you don't even play co-op, no value whatsoever. And again, co-op boost through their weapon assist. If you don't play co-op, useless weapon. And the idea is you inherit this on top of something like, say, Brachydios, who has a strong base button skill and a large attack set. Give them more of the co-op boost, could potentially do more damage. But again, highly situational card overall. Delphine has potential for reasonable healer killer damage if you match 7 combos, but you need to match 7 combos, and a lot of times these healer killer solution cards, you enjoy just one comboing and just letting all the damage fly out for like farming or ranking dungeon purposes. So just an average card overall. Their weapon assist gives you 3 jammers, nothing special. So honestly, it's just an outdated card. You don't need 60% jam resist from a weapon assist anymore. So, do I plan on rolling in Dream Rolls? The answer is no, I don't plan on rolling. Most of these cards are underwhelming, and all of the 5-star cards will not make me happy. I could roll a 5-star card, and they won't actually improve my performance output whatsoever. But it's definitely fun to dream, and for my Dream 7-star card, was GungHo Lakshmi until Brewers, who was watching me stream while I wrote this article, gifted me the Orb Skin bundle, so I went and bought Lakshmi. And as soon as I bought Lakshmi, I replaced my Shiva for my Sena team, and I went into Alt, Ruler of Hell's Hall, and I beat it twice, back to back. And it definitely works. Like, it's just so much more consistency, infinitely higher damage output. Spawns are not as dangerous compared to beforehand. Life just became much nicer, and it's just a matter of me trying to record this for YouTube at some point. It should happen, because it does work. For my Dream 6-star card, I would love to have Fonce, because his Chibi form has an amazingly strong active skill and kit for my purposes, because I don't have a dark card with a low cooldown that can buff RCV or movement time, and this will definitely be a meaningful addition to my monster box. Finally, for their 5-star cards, I guess Celine I'll pick because I don't have them because they're new, and maybe the 10 Dark Orbs that are generated might have some merits. I don't know if I will use it, but hey, it's just something new. So, in conclusion, the GungHo Collab event is an underwhelming affair overall. There are so many cards, but so few of them are actually useful overall. Like, the bottom rarity comprises over 40% of the rolling pool, and none of them will actually help a modestly well-developed monster box. And even then, if you already have leader swap options available, or leader swapping is not relevant to you, very few cards will be truly impactful, I feel, overall. Yes, you could pick up some useful 7-star cards, but are they really going to be helpful? Maybe, maybe not at the same time. But with that being said, you can definitely skip this event, or you can monster exchange for those key desirable cards, and all those leader swapping cards can at least be monster exchange for. With that being said, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below. Do you think it's worth rolling in? And if so, what did you roll, and were you happy with the results? Either way, hopefully you all have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.